Okay, here we go. Turn the microphone up a little bit. Hi, Delta. How you doing? Eating supper. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've kind of chosen to get a stream in while I can. And see if it can help me tinker with all this I'm trying to do. Should be in there. Java with veg and chicken. Nice. Delicious. I think I'm on leftover sub for dinner when I choose to eat. Okay, so what am I doing? So tonight's stream is going to be a little different, but still on the track of the overall platform thing. So in the last couple of days, what I've been working on is actually creating the library. So if you remember the other day, I was working on trying to get code generation to work. And before that, I was trying to work on Sagas as a concept, right? So if I go to Liquid Sky, new window. So what I'd done is in my tenant management application, I created this Saga concept. And what I wanted to do is figure out how to group these events together to trigger a further event. So I kind of kept playing with the design a little bit. You know, I had it publishing the Kafka event in here. And in the end, I decided that was not what I wanted to happen. What I wanted to happen is, as events came in, the state of this would change. Now, this is kind of event sourcey in its nature, the Saga, I suppose, in this configuration. Behavioral in so much as it decides when it needs to complete. But what will happen is, as events happen, it will decide its current state and then can produce something, is the idea. The and can produce something part is a to be determined right now. But the idea is that I want these to be the events that are published from Mediator. I do not want to have in another layer that is built on top of Mediator and kind of, publishes events separately, because then I've got more code to worry about, right? So I'm not focused on the actual responsibility. But the goal of making the Saga is to clean up the responsibilities of the other things, right? I don't want to have to do this. I want to do this automatically in a handler. This one might be the one that's going to trip up my design a little bit, but we'll come back to this. But this code is kind of rinse and repeat for the most part, right? And I don't want to have to write all the interim code. So what I did was I created a library, mediator.sagas. I put TBD develop in front of it so I don't accidentally fall in front of other mediator pieces. And I created a code generator. What this will do is it will look for Sagas in this configuration. So I came up against the problem of dependency injection. I decided that this shouldn't have dependency injection done. It should know what it needs to do. As far as its state goes, it can construct its state. Its state is, it can be handed to it, but it is also configured within, so it can actually initialize itself and be valid. And the started by and handle are two events that can trigger it. So if you receive an event that is handled by a Saga, but it hasn't actually been created yet, then it should be ignored. It shouldn't actually be handled. But if it's started by that, then that Saga can be established and saved in the database, and that process can begin. So what I did is I created these code generators, and they use patterns, they use templates to build an actual class file. And then what happens is when the code analysis goes over and looks at my code, if I've got a Saga in place, right? If I create this sample Saga, it will generate a corresponding handler for the events in there, right? So this one is I handle sample notification. So if I go to the Saga I handle events, then I'll see sample Saga sample notification handler, right? The naming is automatic. I don't have to create these things because, again, because I'm leaning into that code generation, Mediator will pick up these things as listening to that notification, and it will automatically wire up itself to send any notifications of that type into this code, right? Which is cool. It does mean that when I build, I know about it, right? I do know that that thing exists, so I can write code against it. I can create a new instance of it, and I did create unit tests, right? So this relies upon that being there because it's built. It's built when I actually construct the when I do the build, the compilation. So it's working pretty well, right? Now the problem I just came across as I was thinking through it, right, as I was trying to use it, actually analyzing what I need to do, was this one is particularly difficult because it actually does a little bit more. So, but that's not insurmountable, right? Because I could actually create something that would inject more code into those handles for me in the event that or I could create a partial class or a partial implementation, right? So if I define those as partials in here, right? So if I do public partial class and public partial class, what I could actually do is create an overridable method, and then I could create a partial class that overrides that method, right? So if I want to do something specific, I can still inject into it, but if it just, all it does is recall the Saga, that code is boilerplate and done all the time for me. But if I just build this now, what you'll do, or what you should see, I have learned there is some very finicky behavior onto how it decides when it's going to compile the source, right? It might look like it's done it in here, but it hasn't wired it up behind. I could make this method virtual, or I could create an implementation method that is virtual, and I can, do nothing in it, and kind of reconfigure this class so it does what it's going to do if I don't override it, but I can override it as well. But now these will be partial, right? The code generation is doing what I want there. So now I could actually create an implementation in my code saying, public partial class sample Saga sample notification handler. Because it exists, it's not going to cause a problem. It's in the same namespace as my Saga, even if it's not in the same file space. The source generator will show there. I can go and see the code. And then I could tinker with the design and extend it a little bit where needed. But I don't want to do that right this second because it's not really necessary right this second. But I do want to commit. Make Android classes partial. Right now I'm working on the main branch because I'm making a bunch of changes quickly. Merge. There you go. Those are all changes to the GitHub workflow. There's no conflicts there. So what I'm trying to figure out is how to publish this to GitHub. Well, it's up here. I'm trying to publish to NuGet. So by creating releases, I want to actually publish NuGet packages because I am actually going to build a dependency on my own NuGet packages in my product, right? So these should not exist, right? These libraries shouldn't exist. I should just take a reference to Saga generators and Saga persistence. And there we go. And actually, this one would be Saga persistence and this one would be Saga generators, right? But it would just work. So I've got to get to that point, right? So that's the kind of the focus is now I've built these packages. These are packages that I'm willing to open source, right? These are because it goes with Mediator. I've made these MIT licensed the same way as Mediator. So it's use it if you want to, don't use it if you don't want to, right? You know, why am I doing this? What use case have I got? And I don't care if it doesn't get used or, you know, you don't think it's the right thing to do. I've learned a ton doing it, so I win, right? So I now need to figure out how to do the workflow. GitHub Actions is not something I've played a lot with. But once I get the NuGet packages published, NuGet.org, sign in. Right. So once I get the NuGet packages published, you know, I kind of did publish some, but they broke, and I don't know why. Because the GitHub action, and again, the version is going to keep conflicting, so I need to learn how to do that. And what I found was, as is always the case on the internet, there's about 1 billion different ways people suggest of getting versions into your NuGet packages. So if anyone's done this, if anyone has experience in doing it and can offer some suggestions, I would be more than happy to take a suggestion. But otherwise, this stream is going to be me trying to figure this out. The sooner I figure it out, the more I can move on. Because the next step will be to use that package inside of the product, replace these pieces, and then test it, and then verify, okay, now what features do I need? I know one, but I want to verify I can get the packages in there before I go too far. Because I don't want to keep making changes, then making changes and coming back and forth. And if you've watched me stream for long enough and you've seen my naming of my projects change, right? You'll know that writing project names like this was very difficult for me. But I knew they were going to be packages, so I didn't want to mess around with that. Yeah, but other than that, if there's any questions, if anyone's watching that has not done this sort of stuff and would like to know a bit more why I did it or whatever, feel free to ask. It's all about discussion. Delta, I keep glancing at the screen and I see the question, make it virtual. Did I explain that well enough for you as to why I might make it virtual? I can't remember whether I did. Okay. Like, did I actually answer that question? I know that I was going over it, but I didn't know whether I answered it. So, okay, workflows. So the challenge with the GitHub workflow that I can find is there's this Git version thing, but the thing I can find about the Git version is that they say that this is only necessary as long as Azure doesn't support versioning or whatever. So I don't know. And this doesn't make sense. So I'm going to remove it. It is definitely breaking my build. Remove git version. So again, I need to figure out what is the best way of attaching. MK Jocks, thank you very much for the follow, by the way. Appreciate it. I received my 700th follower yesterday as well, which was off stream, which I was happy with. But thank you very much. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. So this is working clearly. So I'm not missing this piece, right? It does publish. And I'm publishing to the right thing. I've got the right rules on board. I was initially going to use GitHub to publish to, trying to keep it out of NuGet. But then I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I don't. The libraries that I want to say are public, therefore I should stand by them. So I'll do that. But I don't know how to version them. Here's it. Bard.google.com. ChatGPT has too much history on it, and I'm not doing an anonymous session, so they work pretty well. How do I attach a version number to the release to NuGet packages published as part of a GitHub release? I knew that was going to do that. Well, semantic version, use a consistent and clear. Yeah, I know. I want to use semantic version. In the new spec file, directly edit the version tag with the new to specify. I don't leverage the power of GitHub Actions. Yes, that's what I want to do. Using GitHub Actions, how do I specify the version number at the time of release tag? So I'm okay tagging the builds. Aha. Build NuGet package. Release creation job using the bump version. Does that work? Tags. On push of tags. Build and release. This workflow bumps the version based on the new tag, builds a NuGet package, and then creates a release GitHub with the package attachment as an asset using custom scripts. How relevant is that, do I think? So I did start with, just for clarity, I did start with going here, new workflow, right? And I looked to see if there was any jobs, continuous integration. I mean, it is CI. I did look, I didn't find anything NuGet like. No, I don't see anything there that's NuGet. MS build based, we're working with .NET, not .NET framework. Back. I know the very first one was .NET. Sorry, I've been on Twitch for like 5 hours at this point. Probably too much computer time for Saturday. No worries, Delta. I appreciate the look. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. I will be back on Monday with more coding before work. So on push. Setup.net. Download a build artifact. NuGet. Publish NuGet. Private NuGet. NuGet publisher. Publish NuGet build pack and publish a NuGet package with .NET Core on project. No, .NET. So you configure the actions. I get that. NuGet publisher. Publish NuGet seems to be the most popular one. MK Jocks. Bro, if you developed an API, do you have any tips for suggestions about it? Suggestions in what way? Developing an API? Using .NET? Developing it. So is this, I mean, I've got plenty of suggestions. I've got plenty of ideas about how I develop APIs. Let me try and think about a more appropriate question for you. Do you have an idea of what you actually want to get? Is there an area you're struggling with? I mean, in terms of .NET these days. So, quick introduction. This is the product that I'm working on primarily, right? I am building my own platform, right? So I'll be doing a lot of API stuff. My goal is to build a platform without developing a single UI. So everything will be API based, right? And I'm building a Agile management platform. So I'm kind of adhering to microservices in some respects, in that I am breaking up pieces. Now, this is not an actual final design yet. I am prototyping it out. I'm trying to feel how I go about things. There's lots of different pieces I use in here that I don't commonly see. This code is not going to be available, but I got plenty of examples on the site, on my GitHub, that do have this sort of code in it. So is there any particular challenge or questions you have around developing an API? Before I go I don't want to go waffling on about a load of stuff that you really don't care about. If there's particular questions or challenges you're facing. Trying to develop a mobile program with React Native, so I want to use .NET 7 or 8 for a backend. Okay. You should get the data and put it into the database. Okay. You're a .NET developer normally, right? I'm still a beginner in some sort of way, so. Okay. So I'd probably start with, so I'm not a big fan of minimal APIs, right? So minimal API.NET, right? So minimal APIs provide you with the ability to do basic routing and perform actions, right? And you can do it in one file, right? This will work. This will create an API, by the way, if you haven't done this yet. And you can kind of grow on top of that. But the problem I have with this style, and it's very Java, it's kind of Express style. They've clearly been influenced by JavaScript frameworks here in doing this. But the problem is that you quickly evolve into wanting to expand this, and then what happens is people write libraries on top of this, which kind of defeats the point in it being a minimal API, because you're now adding layers on top of layers on top of layers. So if you're just prototyping and getting something working, I would go with this path. And all the documentation here is pretty good, right? If you're trying to build a full-on API out of it, I'd probably go a different path. It sounds like if you're developing a mobile program and you want a .NET backend, your focus is primarily on the mobile side of it, right? So this might be the quickest way to get you up and running with something that works, and then you can come back and address that later if you feel that you need to. Like if you're writing an application that does exactly what this is doing, like to-dos, and your mobile side of it is the to-dos. Okay, I'm trying to make it secure and learn API and .NET as much as I can. Well, secure-wise, if you're doing authentication, right, I prefer to not deal with writing my own auth. My apologies, that's in full-on white mode. So I use Auth0 for my authentication. And then I just pass the token up and add the right pieces into .NET. And Auth0's documentation. Auth0 is free for basic usage, and the documentation on setting it up in different applications is good. So I normally use that path for making sure that I'm secure. If you're publishing it, obviously you want to put it behind a secure certificate. The .NET stuff makes that pretty easy, right? It's not really a major concern as long as you redirect to HTTPS. And in the regular framework, right, that's it, right? If you're picking up C# for the first time, yeah, many people use ready authentication like Facebook or Google login. I'm not a fan of it, honestly. It can be a little risky, so Auth0 does provide you kind of the middle ground there, right? Auth0 provides you with a database, so you can have your own user system, and it's isolated. Come on. So what that means is you don't have to use other providers. You don't have to say I want to use Google. You can turn it on. So what you can do is in your to Liquid Sky, in my user management here, right? This is my database. This is all managed within Auth0. So they're doing that piece, and I can actually turn on social providers. So I can enable Google, right? So I'm using Google, or can use it rather. I'm not using it in this instance. Yeah, dev keys, and you have to hook it up there. So you can add in social providers, but I don't do. So they have this database version, right? So, and you can set your rules and do all that. And if your app grows, you can pay the levels, etc. So that's kind of the middle ground. Building, if you're learning about .NET and APIs all at the same time, I highly would advise against building your own auth system, because you're never going to make it as secure as it needs to be, right? This way, I log in through Auth0, I set the accepted return URLs, so it's as clean as it can be, and then I pass the token to my API, and I have the layers in there to authenticate that API and validate permissions and things like that. But if you're learning .NET at the same time, I really wouldn't worry about those pieces initially. I'd learn more about the framework you're using for building the API. So again, if you're building something quick that will get you into .NET, then the minimal APIs is probably the quickest way of getting up and running with is .NET code. It introduces the concepts. It perfectly introduces the concepts. So you've got database configuration, you've got actual wiring up the database models, you've got the actual context, you've got injecting it so it is actually injected in. So you get dependency injection and stuff in there. And it is full featured. It's just a little bit too messy for me once you go beyond another layer. What I tend to do these days is I don't like, the next level up from that is controllers. So if you start a new project, he says quickly, if you start a new web application, let's do a web API. And I assume you're using Visual Studio, by the way. Thank you for all of it, and it's my fault I didn't mention that. I'm not going to put that up to use for any other people, so it's all about gaining experience. Use Visual Studio. Okay, 1 second. An ad break is about to fire off that you will probably get affected by, so I will wait for that to clear before I actually continue any conversation there. It's going off in about 15 seconds. I'll leave the ads in because it does help with preventing pre-rolls from people joining the stream, so I apologize, but I will wait until the ad is cleared before I actually resume. That should take about a minute and a half. If you are seeing ads or you're not seeing ads, just let me know and I will continue. You don't see any ads? Nice. Twitch is broken. Okay, that's cool. It's a hard balance. Anyway, so if I'm in Visual Studio and I want to create a new API, right, I can do ASP.NET call web API and hit next. And sample stream application 1. Configure HTTPS, .NET 8. I probably need to update Visual Studio. Let's just go with 7 for right this second. I don't want to have it any preview features weirdness. Good job, Twitch, on the ad thing. My apologies. Sorry, I didn't get the last thing you said. Okay, so my apologies. The ad is actually running. So Twitch just told me it was going to run an ad, then waited a minute before it ran the ad. So I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so .NET 7 standard term support I'm using right now because my Visual Studio isn't updated. I'm enabling open API support, so that will help with the documentation. So what that does is enable an add-on piece that will help document your API. That's a good thing to do. If you're ever gonna create an API for another group, or whatever, having the documentation built for you and the ability to test it is useful. I'm not going to use top level statements. Top level statements is kind of whether to generate an explicit program class and main method. The new style, the old style used to have classes and stuff set up. The new style allows just straight down code, and then use controllers. If I don't check that, I'll get minimal APIs. If I do check that, I'll get controllers, and I'll show you the controllers because obviously the minimal API stuff is over there. So I'll create my project. Says with confidence. He moved it back over to the window. And what Visual Studio, it will give you the controllers. And in general, controllers, not bad, right? But the problem I have personally with controllers is the amount of clutter they create. And what happens is you can try and hold to RESTful. That is a thing, right? Holding to the HTTP verbs and making sure your URLs are correct. I try to stay close, but I don't worry about it being a major thing for me. So I'm not trying to say, oh, I want to go to weather forecast, so I'm not going to use get weather forecast. I'm just going to use weather or forecast, right? So the default style is controllers, but I kind of prefer another library these days. So what I do is I delete them and I go to dependencies and I manage NuGet packages And I look up a package called ardalis.api. Helps if you're in the browse. API endpoints. Install that. This is a good library if you haven't used it. But basically what I do then is I change, and you'll have seen some hint of it on my other application. I create an endpoints folder, and then what I do is I create a folder for the thing that I'm working with. So if I'm working with books, right? Books, yeah, let's go with books, right? Is that a clear architecture? Hello, Frank. How are you doing? I don't know. Full disclosure, I do not study any architectures. I just kind of use the tools that I see and feel are good and combine them in the way that I want to combine them. So I don't really try and I probably land on them, but I don't actually try and explicitly use any. I know that Steve Smith is a big architectural guy, and I've used a lot of his stuff recently. I'm just going through it for MK Jocks a little bit to show him, show them. Sorry, my apologies. Assumption. That there's another way of doing the controller stuff. Okay, well, I still apologize. So books, and now in here, what I do is I don't add a controller. I add a new class, right? And I call this post, right? So I'm aligning this to actually my HTTP verb. I don't know how much of this is my adaptation of the style, but it's kind of the way I've evolved to use this library. And then I inherit from endpoint base async. I'm so used to using Rider that the keyboard shortcuts in here are just... Okay, so I'm going to post a book. And what I tend to do here now is I public class parameters. I actually embed my class that I'm going to pass in. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. Author. I embed it in here because it's not really going to matter. And then I do post.parameters there. And then with action result, right? And then I implement the handle. Now this happens to align pretty neatly with Mediator, which is a different library, which I'm not going to go into now because that's way deeper. And if you're interested in that sort of stuff, carry on watching the stream because you'll see a lot of it. And basically this is a replacement for your controller, right? Underneath this actually builds controllers, but the thing is it kind of tightens up the design a little bit. It keeps it focused on one action and only one action. You can still inject into this, so I can still inject my DB context, right? Whatever. I don't have it included, so that's why. Right, so I can still inject things and I can still do things in there. And that kind of keeps a nice, neat, tidy API. And that would be my preference for doing an API today. It's how I do it right this second. If I was trying to go for quick, I go to minimal APIs. It will give you what you want. But as you're learning .NET and growing into it, you can evolve from there, but it's very difficult to just go and refactor all that API stuff and put it into a different framework. So, yeah. But there you go. That's the other option there. Controllers with a web API or that. Things like security and stuff, I would worry about getting the structure in place and then look up best practices, hints and tips on how to secure .NET web APIs, vulnerabilities, things like that. Obviously, if you're aiming for .NET 8, you're going to get the most recent version with all the best fixes. So, yeah. So a very good video during .NET Conf about that, and I think they used Agile as an example. I didn't know either. Thought it was nice. Yeah, I've watched a lot of Steve Smith stuff. He's written some very good libraries. He has a result library as well. Right. This is a good library as well because if you standardize around using it, you don't you don't throw exceptions and stuff. You just return results, and then you can say, was this result an error? Was it with this? And it's just, it all works very nicely together. Mediator plus, you know, API endpoints plus result plus specifications. They all kind of tie together. But yeah, MKJox, if you are looking for further advice, I'm not gonna spend any more real time. I think I've given you a lot to think about already. I do have a Discord. I don't know if it's actually in the stream link, so I will make sure I copy a link. And you're more than welcome to join the Discord, and I'm happy to answer questions. And there are other people that do go in the Discord. A little quiet these days, but no. It's not wasting time. I don't mind the time. It's just I do have other things that I am kind of focused on. And you know, you will see this sort of stuff, right? But I'm more than happy to talk about this stuff. But right now, I also need to kind of stay on track for what I'm trying to do as well. But there are other people in that Discord as well that do development. So how have you been, Frank? I haven't managed to catch a stream of yours in a long time. I've recently got back into the streaming thing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can. I want to get a job, and no matter how much I study or code, I just don't feel enough, and it stresses me so much. You don't feel good enough? You don't feel you know enough? Both of them. I mean, did you do college? Have you completed college? Are you kind of self-taught? Where are you in terms of your education and, you know, I mean, level of comfort with development in general? Right, that's what I was doing. In a few weeks without streaming. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking through my my list of follows today actually, and I was like, doesn't stream anymore, doesn't stream anymore, doesn't stream anymore, and I felt very sad. I remember a time that was a little bit more active on Twitch with a lot of really great developers that was fun to go in the streams of. And I've recently got back into a few streams, and there've been some really great communities, and really positive and encouraging. I've been finding myself very productive the last couple of weeks. There is no internship in my university, and I'm at the fourth year of it, and it's last year. Okay. I mean, there's always employers looking for junior developers, entry level developers. Do you have GitHub repositories and things like that out there? Have you demonstrated? I mean, do you want to get into games development? Do you want to get into application development? Is there any particular discipline you want to jump into? So I'll let that to you. I'm currently, for those just joining me, I'm currently trying to figure out how to get versioning on my GitHub repository. It's not something I've actually done before, because I've normally used tools like tools like other CI tools that have done this versioning for me. So I'm trying to figure this out for the first time because I want to publish some NuGet packages, which I'll go over in a second. I wrote an MVC app, and I think I want to be full stack developer. I know it's going to be hard. Yeah, but I mean, it's you just gotta put your stuff out there and put your resume out there and make sure it's polished enough and just keep practicing, right? Software development is not something that ever stops being hard, right? I mean, I'm a developer of many years. Frank, you're a developer of many years as well. You know, the challenges don't stop being there. Once you're over a certain point in your career, there's always a new challenge. There's always like this, right? I don't know how to do this. If I was asked to do this by an employer tomorrow, I would have to go and learn it. And an employer that supports that learning path is a good employer to be with. And you'll find that. You just gotta, again, put yourself out there, be confident. Don't try and oversell yourself, but don't undersell yourself as well, right? You don't know it all. You don't know what you don't know yet, right? Until the challenge arises. And as for the full stack, you'll find a speciality. You'll find somewhere you're a bit more comfortable. I don't think there is truly a full stack developer, like 100% solid on every single area of an application. But enjoy yourself. Enjoy your development. Enjoy learning. Enjoy growing. I'm not bearded. I am not clean shaven. But I am self-taught, right? I did not go to college. I taught myself. Okay, admittedly the times are different. It's not modern day, but I am self-taught, and I have been self-taught throughout my entire career. I do the streaming thing, because I love software development and I love sharing it, and I want people to talk about it, and I love people to engage, and it's just what I do. So yeah, learn how to learn. Yeah, and don't ever pretend you know something you don't. Right? I once went for a job interview, and they were like, "Okay, you need to do the coding test, but you're not allowed. You're not allowed to use the internet. Now here's an algorithm that we need developed." Like, no. And they asked me their feedback, like, what do you think of the interview? I was like, it was absolutely nonsensical. What developer in today's day and age does not have access to the internet to learn a skill? Right? And you have to use the skills. You can't just let them go stale. You got to keep doing them, because they'll evolve, and you'll go back to doing them. Oh yeah, I did that for 5 years, and you'll go back 3 years later and be like, wow, it looks totally different, because it's evolved. It changes. So you're constantly learning. You're constantly adapting. Yeah, I love what I do. So, brief introduction to tonight's stream is me trying to get versioning on a GitHub repository. I have been building this application prototype. This is not a full application as yet. What I want to develop is an Agile project management tool, Jira, Jira level, right? But the biggest problem I have with any of the tools out there is the lack of communication and coordination between teams and groups of developers, and management, visibility, and the ability to share work between each other. So my goal is to develop a platform. So this code is not going to be available because it's going to be my platform. Develop a platform from which I can do that. And I'm going to start with APIs. There is not going to be a single layer of UI until I've got enough pieces in place to start building a UI. That is my goal. No, it's not a little project, and I've been working on this for 2 months already. Off stream. But I'm having fun, which is the most important part. Again, I'm learning, I'm growing. So over the last couple of days, I've been going through and trying to figure out some of the challenges that I'm going to face once I start to actually develop real stories to actually start implementing features into the system. So what I've got working so far is I have several APIs. I can log in. I can also register a new tenant, and I can fire off events in the system, right? So I'm using Kafka as my eventing system. So when I register a tenant, it publishes an event that says a tenant was registered. Other systems consume that event and do what they need to do. So over here in work items, I have consumers here. This consumes a tenant being created and establishes a Couchbase database for work items, right? I have individual APIs working on each piece. So tickets in the work items system, teams in the team system, right? So I can create a team, I can get a list of teams, etc. I have permissions in there. And again, this is all prototype. This is not actual, this is not the firmed up version of this. And so I've got events publishing in Kafka. I'm using API endpoints, as I just demonstrated. I'm using Ardalis's specification stuff. So what happens is when I go and register a new customer, right? So this is registering a new customer. So this uses an endpoint, just like I was demonstrating, right? I post my details in there. And then I've added a layer in here that I'm referring to as workflows, because workflows are kind of the conjoining of different pieces of the different event firing or different actions being required. So creating the user and doing this and doing that and publishing the events. And what I came up against was a challenge, right? I came up against a challenge where I kind of needed to join several of these events together. And when the events happened, I needed to do something else. So when I create a tenant, I was firing off the event that a tenant was created. And that was going off and allocating resources. Now, right now, this is all local development. It's all in Docker. But if I put this up into the cloud, if I go as Josephine Blogs to the site and register a new company, and I never confirm the email, I'm just creating it just for fun, right? I'm just going registration, create a company. And if I fire off an event there that says, go create the tenant and establish all the resources, I'm going to publish an event, and then a Couchbase database is going to spool up some resources. It's going to create a bucket and collections. Another database could establish another schema, could trigger off all sorts of scripts. That's going to be expensive. I'm going to create data where I don't need to create data. So I decided I needed some way of saying, okay, well, this can happen, but I don't want to publish the event yet because I need other things to have happened. So I need to orchestrate this sequence of events. So I create the user and I create the tenant, and those events will get tracked. And then when I confirm my registration, when I click on that little button in the email, it will hit this endpoint, confirm that, and that is good enough for me to say, yes, this is actually worthy of going allocating the resources. There's no easy way to do that I know of in the way I was doing it, right? I don't want to introduce end service bus or mass transit at this point, actual dedicated message buses that have the concept of a long running process of Saga, because these are all events that don't really need to be distributed, or these aren't different systems that need to do these things, right? It's this one system. So what I've done, or what I decided to do, is introduce the Saga concept to my project. So Saga is kind of coordinating. So this Saga, the tenant registration Saga, is started by tenant was registered. It can also be started by tenant user was registered, because again, they could come out of sequence. So I've got to allow for that. And it handles user was verified. And then it has a complete state, which if all these events have happened, then this Saga is complete. It's good. It's got everything it needs in the most basic form. And I've yet to decide on the next stage of this. But what I did is I diverted. And I was like, okay, well, this registration Saga makes sense. But I don't want to go and start creating loads of additional code in my code base that clutters things up, right? Because again, right now what I was doing is, okay, when I've got a user verified, let's go get the Saga and handle the notification. This is kind of repetitive. I do it every single time now, right? But now I've cluttered the application up because now the single responsibility, this handler was to handle this event and it had a very specific purpose. But now it's also got a second purpose, which is not what you want it to do, right? It wants to be doing one thing and one thing only so it can be tested and effectively validated. And you know that it's responsible for just one thing. If I'm doing the Saga stuff as well, now my Saga is chained into there, and that's a problem. So what I've done is I started to flesh out in my shared a little bit more of, okay, what do I want Saga to be like? Okay, I've got some pieces. Yep, this is working. I can persist it, etc. But I decided that wasn't far enough, right? So I went one more complicated step. And I decided that I needed to create my own library. Now, this is built around the mediator library, right? Not mediator with an R there instead of OR. This is a relatively new library that uses source generation instead of reflection. The benefit being it doesn't do a lot of allocation. It can wire up, okay, here's a command, here's a query, or here's a notification. And it wires them up at build time so that it doesn't have to worry about figuring things out. So I was inspired by that and decided to extend that a little bit and introduce the concept of sagas in Mediator. So what these do is, if I have a saga, this is the core saga code, it will look for all implementations of the saga and generate code. So in the case of I am started by, it will generate a class that does that code for fetching the saga and doing that, right? So it will just build this code out. And there's the actual unit test for it. And if I go in here, into source generators, there's my actual class that's been generated. Right? So I can build it dynamically. I can now call this, and now I don't have to do that boring boilerplate wire up. Right? So I'm trying to get to the point where I can verify the use cases for this, right? This might not be needed. I might scrap this, but I've learned a lot along the way. I've learned about source generators. I've learned about how to build them, how to use them, the restrictions of them, the challenges with using them in the IDE, which are numerous, right? I'm starting to document them so that it's official. And I'm going to share these sorts of things are definitely something that if they actually are useful, then I want to share them. So although I might not be sharing the core code, I am going to share these, right? So this mediator.sagas library is in my GitHub. It is public. I've extended the MIT license onto it because the mediator library itself is MIT, right? Why? Explaining why, but this might exist, right? I don't care if it exists. I wasn't going to spend an entire week trying to figure out if someone else had already done this. I was going to build this and learn along the way. Good. I'm glad you like it. So I have now built the library in its basic form. So I want to get to testing it, right? I need to make sure that at the very least, I have no challenges including this NuGet package into my own code, right? So I'm going to build a dependency on my own code isolated from the actual libraries. So the challenge is I can build the NuGet packages, but I can't version them properly. And I've not done this in GitHub before, and I found all manner of different ways to do it. And this was the one I was on earlier in the stream. So again, as always, if there's questions about what I'm doing here, if you don't like what I'm doing or you don't think it's doing the right thing, or I'm reinventing wheels and you want to say so, feel free. I don't mind. I'm happy to talk about this stuff. But like I said, on my stream or on my GitHub, there is plenty of examples of me doing this sort of code, going back several years. So it's not like this code is all definitely, brand new and unique. It's just that the things that I want to make unique about it, I want to keep. No, it's not about experience. It's not about, if you're thinking, well, why don't you do it this way, right? Just because you're earlier on in your software development journey doesn't mean that you don't have a valid thing to say about a more experienced developer working on something, right? If you know something or you've learned something that I don't know about and you can share that with me, you shouldn't be afraid to share that, is kind of the point, right? It might be intimidating, right? Looking at large code bases, looking at someone else's code base is always kind of intimidating because you don't know what it's doing. But don't assume that because you're less experienced, you have nothing to add to a conversation. It's one of my kind of primary beliefs is that I should be called out if I'm, oh no, you don't know anything, you're young, or because I didn't like it when I was a young developer, and I certainly don't want to be that person. So yes, so right now there's a bit of guesswork, there's a bit of copy and paste, there's a bit of figuring out what I need to do, and I'm not sure if I trust ChatGPT or Bard in this instance. Let's see. GitHub version NuGet using bump version on release. So because I haven't used GitHub Actions, even that's hurting my eyes, and I don't think I have a dark mode thing built into the browser. I'm using DuckDuckGo. I like how it tells me. So I apologize for dark to bright white. Nope. Bump version. We're looking for whether to publish a new version of GitHub package, auto bumping the NuGet package version value in the CS proj on PR merge. We would like this to bump the version. Right now, this bumps blah. Okay, so that's that. .NET bump version. Peritus, automated vert. I'm seeing a pattern here. Yeah, I was wondering about the browser and I thought it was Brave, but then sorry, it's not. Yeah, DuckDuckGo's browser. I need to change this. So what I do and I shouldn't do is I spend a lot of time on my dev machine. So I believe in having dedicated machines. So I have a development machine, a streaming PC, a gaming PC, and I spend too much time on here, and I'm going to leak personal information if I'm not careful. So I should make this a more isolated Windows install. Okay, so let's have a look at Peritus. Current status of this project. Oh my goodness me. I'm in a slightly dark room, so bumps the version in package. Pardon me. That's going to be the same thing. Bump release version. Bump. Firefox containers? No, I haven't seen Firefox containers. I haven't used Firefox in years. Appearance. Uh, Same room that you do. Converting your negatives to photos. Hi Deflux, how you doing? Use containers to make tabs use different accounts, but that site, for example, I don't know how to. Okay, I'll have a look. Thank you. It's something I should consider doing because I don't. One day I'm going to show something that I really don't want to show. I try to clean things up, and DuckDuckGo does a pretty good job of removing data, but yeah. But okay, I do apologize for flashes to white screens for right this second. No, I'm not looking to automate my Node.js. Bump version NuGet packages. Versioning NuGet packages in a CI world. Package versioning, versionize. How to increase NuGet package version automatically with GitHub Actions 2023. Versioning, blah 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 blah. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to change the library every time I make a change. I want it to build based upon the release that I do. Package versioning. Basic idea of it is creating a container and making it use of its own data, and when you change the container, it makes that site to forget about it. Nice. Once the elites are done taking away everyone's freedom of speech, I'm going to push them to pass a law making it a finable offense to flash someone with a white screen. I do apologize. I'm not trying to blind anybody. Not my intention to upset you. But the same, I'm not messing around. I'm not spending the rest of the stream messing around with trying to get dark mode working in DuckDuckGo. Nor changing my browser. Because if I have to log into GitHub again, I'm going to cry. White screens makes my cave bright. You know, like bright pages. Well, I'm not in a very well lit room. I will tomorrow have a camera set up. So when I stream next week, I will have my camera back. But I will be streaming early in the morning. I do have stream lights and stuff. So it's then I won't even realize the white flashes that I'm doing for everyone else. So. Doesn't look like what it does what I want it to do. Automatic versioning and change log. Nope. How to increase NuGet package version automatically with GitHub Actions. This is what I want you to do. You're starting with regex. This is not a good sign. By the way, it's 3 AM for me, so I got to go. And again, thank you for your advice and information you gave. No worry, MK Jock. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Appreciate the watching. Jump in the Discord. If you have any questions, feel free. I normally stream much earlier in my day, like 12 hours. So 3 PM your time I would normally be on. Monday to Friday. But have a great day tomorrow. Take care. Okay, so I'm not using this. Branded outcast, published NuGet. I'm going to use someone else's package with my secrets. What? Am I reading that right? No. Using release management. I don't want to use Azure. I'm not using Azure. Why is this not easier? So Build artifact. Build commands using .NET Pack. NuGet package. Download NuGet. I'm trying to increase. So I'm trying to publish these packages. These 3 packages, right? Well, I don't want to use Azure right now. I want to use GitHub, pure GitHub. So I want to produce the packages off of this GitHub repository, right? So I did get them. Obviously, my key is working, right? So I am able to upload to NuGet. I just brought these back because I don't want to use them. But the problem was that the workflow was failing because it wasn't upgrading the version numbers, right? So I want to automate uploading to GitHub, from GitHub to NuGet. So I have this release, which does the push, but obviously they're not versioned correctly. So somewhere in here, I have to version them. Now I would like to say, when I go to here and say release, right? Let's delete that one. I don't care. That will trigger a build, which I create a release. I can tag it. And when I tag it, that version that I tag it with should be the version that it picks up. How to use tagged version on NuGet package in release.yaml. I'm glad no one's like, you don't know how to do that? Oh, sorry. The white screen. Come on. Oh, come on. That's even worse. And use dark mode code. No, I'm not using brew install on my Windows PC. Oh, again, why I decided to stream it. I was sat there watching Satolis stream. I'm like, I want to go stream now. Because even if I get it done and no one pays attention, I will record it if I manage to do it. I've got an hour and a bit left. How to pack it? How to? Oh my! Burn it all. So if I take the tagged version number, it would be good. But I find all manner of different explanations as to how to do this. Now, this Bard suggestion is giving me, it doesn't look correct. So it creates a job on tags version like this. Bump the version, which I kind of like that idea. But then it uploads it. And then downloads the artifact. Like release notes and stuff I'll worry about later. I'm not panicked about certain things. For beginners, dedicated versioning actions like bump version offer an easy to use solution with predefined configurations. Ultimately consider your project's needs and scripting needs. Yeah. Well, right now the idiot behind the screen needs to just attach a good version. I mean, you can increment it through the project and upload it, right? But I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that, right? Because this fails because Git tools, right? It's using the old version of the script I had. I get it. Release YML. No. I don't want Git version. I literally do not want that. Remove Git version. That looks like that library was only built to accommodate Azure anyway, or an Azure defect. what I could read before. Git version. Am I just not using building release .yml with an automatic version number for NuGet packages? Yeah, I've got a feeling this would be a lot easier using Azure pipelines, but I don't want to hook Azure pipelines into GitHub Actions. Otherwise, I don't want to combine the two components. I'm not putting to Azure anything yet, so I don't want to play with Azure. This project is nowhere near cloud ready. So what can I do? I've got to figure out pass release tag version to release.yml script. So I do understand obviously that by calling it release YML, that's what does it when I trigger a release. If I want another workflow, I can build another workflow to run the build and test. And I should do that on CI, right? I can build a CI version. GitHub Actions. Let's see if Bard can help me on that. Because if I can control the number, I'm good with me controlling the version number. That is perfectly fine. Draft A and draft B. Why am I saying this? One of these is a lie. Which do you think it is? I think they actually are asking me to A/B test. That's quite brazen. Do they not know that people rely upon this software? They're very different as well. Could I do that? Echo release tag. Could I do that? I don't want to git tag it. What I'm suggesting is, can I pass in when I do the pack? .NET pack. .NET pack. Version NuGet packages. I am perfectly okay with a kind of version. Version suffix. Verbosity. Don't. Oh yeah, I remember seeing this documentation. So this is really confusing, right? So watch this. So if we go down to version suffix, defines the value for the version suffix MS build property. The effect of this property on the package version depends on the values of the version and version prefix properties as shown in the following table. So properties with values none, package version 1. Version, version. Version prefix only, version prefix. What? What? Is that the... If you want to use version suffix, specify version prefix and not version in the project file. For example, if version prefix is 0.1.2 and you pass version suffix RC1 to .NET Pack, the package version will be 0.1.2. If version has a value and you pass version suffix to .NET Pack, the value specified for version suffix is ignored. Set the package version with the package version .NET Pack-P. Let's try. -C release -P. What is the worst that happens? -P. Package version equals that. Use tagged version as package version for NuGet. It's starting to make sense why NuGet packages all seem to align the version numbers though. Okay, so we go here. Can you delete other tags? Code, tags, the all tags. Delete tag. Yep. Do not care. The all tags. I think that UI is borked. Delete this tag. Delete this tag. Delete this tag. There's a method to my madness. Releases. So let's create a new release. So we're going to tag this 0.0.1. Release title. Initial publish. For Saga. Mediator.saga. And again, I've put TBD develop in front of mediator.saga. Because I want to make sure it's not confused. I don't want it to be even aligned with mediator. I hope you write a blog post once you figure it out. Yeah. I'm known for my blog posts. My biggest problem is to write something down. I don't quite know how to do it. It's kind of why streaming is nice and fun. Because I can do it. If people take something from it, or they want something from it, I always upload it. I do now. And I am streaming to YouTube at the same time, by the way, here. So, yeah. Although I'm not TBD Gamer on YouTube. Right now it's under Terry BD. Which I'm not meant to promote, by the way. Is this looking like it's even going to work? Oh, come on. Not a fail. Not a fail. So what it does is here, by the way, is it actually... That again. It actually... It did it. It actually versioned it. Yes. A package with... No, it doesn't. Does it do a double push? Let's have a look. Unlisted. Come on. Oh, it did. It published all of them. Close. So close. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I said I'm not going to promote the other platform. That is a requirement. Well, options. I saw a message, someone... Okay. So it's not perfect, but it looks like, if I give this a refresh, eventually they'll go to listed, I'm pretty certain. Oh, we changed... Ah. That'll be why. So by default, it lists them. However, I unlisted them previously and it remembers the name, not the actual... listing. Come on. I just want it. So what I'm trying to get to is I'm trying to get to the point where I can actually prove that I can pull the library in and I can use it without any further tweaking, right? Because there's some things that are involved in. So if you haven't used source generators before, which up until 2 days ago I hadn't, so I'm now clearly a pro. Right? If you haven't used source generators before, so the actual generator library itself has to be a .NET Standard 2.0 library. It cannot be 2.1, it has to be 2.0, right? The tooling for generators is a step behind. These were only released in 2020, so they're relatively new. There are other ways of generating .NET code, but these are, when they work, they're really nice. So again, if you haven't seen them so far, this is my Saga library. This is the persistence part of the Saga library. And then I've created these generators. And the intention will be I write the Saga in my code, and it will do the wire up for me, so it will listen to the events coming from Mediator. So I don't have to do that piece. And in my tests, right, if I go here, when single handler is implemented and no Saga exists, right, Saga was not persisted. When single handler is implemented on Saga and Saga exists, handle is called on Saga instance, notification data is passed to Saga, Saga is persisted, right? So these are the unit tests around it. Now these run, or they should run, right? Amazing. But they're using classes that are generated. So if I go to dependencies in .NET 8, go to source generators, these classes are generated based upon me having a Saga in my code. This wires them up, which I think is just, this is awesome. This is a lot of fun, right? And I'm, how do I put this? I am borrowing a lot of inspiration and code examples from the Mediator library itself and how to do this. So I have taken a lot of reading through that code to do this. But again, these are the projects that I'm making public. So any additional libraries I create around this project, I will open source them. Right, so let's see if it's, yes, they're all published now. So what I changed there for the purpose of the video, right? This is still failing, which is bugging me. We'll go back over that afterwards. This one succeeded. I think this triggers for every library, but I think it publishes all the packages. So I think it actually, yeah. SQL Server Sagas, right? It's published. Generators, Sagas, and SQL Server. Yes. This has published all 3 packages, but it runs this script once per library. So it's going to run 3 build jobs, but it does publish them. But either way, we have it. We have that there. Again, if you want to see the code, you can go to that URL, and all the code is there. That's going to show us failing because the last one failed. But I've given links to the Saga pattern, Mediator, and source generators there. So in the end, what was that? That's what I was going to do. In the end, that was me seeing that and thinking, what happens if? So all I did is go in on the .NET pack and do package version release. what I need to do is figure out how to make sure this is per solution and not per library. But that can wait, right? I can tinker with that offline. There's no good to come from sitting here for another hour messing with that. Okay, so let's go back to Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky is my little project name. So under shared here, right now I have my previous implementation. So I'm being particularly bad with my coding path here. Basically, each branch I make is an extension of the previous branch. So as I move through the pieces, the code gets heavier and heavier. But I can see where I was at any point. I need to come back across that. But right now, this is all part of my auth0 confirmation path. So again, the goal here is draw.io. The funny thing is this goes into dark mode. Open existing diagram. Date modified. New tenant. So I'm a potential customer. I come into the site, I sign up with a customer name, an email address, company details, and I test to see if they're unique, which we're going to go down that path at some point because that's a store procedure right now, and I've recently seen a reigniting of people disliking store procedures. I test to see if it's unique. If it's not, then I reject it because I'm not allowing you to register the same company again, even if the user is different. I then register the tenant, and then I register a user. And right now the workflow goes, once this happens, I publish an event that says create. And as part of this project, I have these other pieces. So this work items consumers listens to that tenant created and establishes a Couchbase collection. Because I'm going to tinker with putting the actual documents, the work items themselves, inside of a Couchbase database. Other things, other data, users, tenants, etc., they're going to live in SQL Server databases. So I'm going to, along the path here, as I start to build these components of the system out, I'm going to try and experiment with the technologies. I'm going to try and use different technologies for different purposes. Right? I'm going to modify these things and keep changing them. Primarily because I want to make sure that I'm building the platform I want to build. And also because I don't think I should be scared to change things out. Right? A lot of software is built upon the idea that it's going to do one thing and it's only going to do one thing. And how many times have you as a developer had to go back and re-implement something or change something out, or it's just not wanted to change, so you've kind of hacked a solution in place? So I don't want to do that. So my tenant management piece, I want to change to be, when I register the user, I want to register with auth0, and then I want to confirm, right? Now, this is where my Saga comes in. So tenant was registered, right? So I kind of have a need for line, then backward. So this is a tenant registration Saga as such. And again, I might get 6 months down the line here and learn that I really didn't need this. But I will have learned a lot along the way. So arrange text pop. Okay. So I have the tenant was registered. I have that created an arrow there. Bring forward. Then Going backward. You not like that, do you? Yeah, it doesn't. I'm worried about something. I don't need to worry about that. The tenant was registered. I have the um, user was created. Right now, these events can fire, and I know they need to be fired, and they have to have happened. But I need a coordination, and that's where my Saga comes in, right? And I don't want it to be. This isn't distributed. This is all within the same application layer as such. So, notifications within Mediator really make sense to me. And then when this happens, right, this confirmation doesn't come from there now, right? This confirm goes over here again. I'll worry about the lineage. I'll worry about the lines later. And this was user was confirmed, right? And now this will do that part. That will do that part, right? Okay, there's no order, but whatever. And then this here will be responsible for publishing the event when it's complete to say this was completed, right? So it should publish another notification potentially is where I'm going right now. So tenant registration completed, right? And if we go from that handler, which we will own, right, then publishes tenant created, which then kicks off the system to do what it needs to do. I haven't created any resources I didn't need to create. I have made sure that the right pieces are in place at each stage, and my workflow is a little easier. And I have, more importantly, the pieces of code that handle these pieces are atomic. Right, there's no extra pieces they're doing. There's no hidden logic. There's no hidden behavior. So my tenant management application piece here, my tenant user was registered piece, no longer needs to care about the Saga. It doesn't need to care about this event because this event is its own handler to the tenant user was registered. Right? If it needs to do something to coordinate, then that Saga needs the event from this one as well to complete its job. I shouldn't be chaining together those responsibilities. Right? Does it make the system harder? Yes. It makes the system a little harder in terms of there's no one place you can go and look for the code. So how do I handle that? How do I grow the code base with that? I make sure that I'm consistent in my path, right? If I'm sending a command, it's always a command. If I'm asking for data, it's always a query. If I'm publishing an event internally, it's always a notification. If I'm publishing an event globally, it's always a Kafka event, right? And I'm consistent in how I do something. So my naming matters, right? If I'm doing this, right, and I'm not using the correct terminology or I'm using the wrong words, it's going to be hard to find that. So if I call this the PN Rudge state or whatever, or I try and make this more technical, and my PM, which in this case is also my other hat, right, comes along and says, hey, when a tenant's registered, we need to do this thing. And I'm like, okay, what was that called again, right? So I've got to make sure that I'm consistent in my naming, that I'm naming things the way that they are discussed. And again, I'm talking to myself right this second. So that's how I'll make the system easier to use overall. And the maintenance of the system is going to improve as I go as well. Sorav, sorry, I did not see your message in YouTube. Damn, still coding since yesterday. I've been, in all honesty, I have been working on this pretty much every moment I have for the last couple of days. I have had more energy for development in the last week than I've had in a long time, and I've felt really inspired and really energetic about what I'm doing, and that's kind of telling me I'm on the right path as well, because I want to do more, right? So we're getting there, right? So now, the big moment, the moment that I've been waiting for the past 24 hours, hoping that I'd get there bit by bit by bit. We're now going to do that. Yep, that's fine. And come on. It's going nutty because it's deleting all the code that I've written. Right? Oh no, I've got rid of it. So now my tenant, my Saga is now on the floor crying. My code here is completely sad because all that stuff, all that piece I'd worked on is gone. Right. Oh, tenant was registered. I don't need that. I'm going to need some of that, by the way. I know full well I'm about to kick myself in the butt because I'm going to be like, you shouldn't have done that. This handler we're going to leave in place right now. We're just going to copy out the relevant pieces. Main reason being, this is the use case that I don't have and that I'm going to have to develop further. But I want an across the board build before I do this. Teddy KGB, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. If you're new to the stream, if you've been watching me for a while, whichever one it is, feel free to ask any questions. You know, if you've got any comments or thoughts on what I'm doing, feel free. I'm open to discussion on this stuff. It's not perfect. It is what it is. But I'm trying to do the best I can. So this is going to not go well at all, right? Because there's going to be pieces broken all over the place. I'm going to find pieces I've missed that I've just deleted, right? Because I probably made changes to this code to make this happen, and now it doesn't work, right? So I'm going to trip up. Remove that. We got one more. When tenant was registered. So this is going to be so the reason that I just deleted tenant was registered because initially that was publishing that event, the thing I was talking about, right? That was publishing registered or tenant was publishing tenant was registered or receiving that and then actually publishing tenant created, which kicked off everything else. Now, because I'm still aiming to get to tenant created and hopefully I'll have that at least in theory figured out how I'm going to do that before the end of the stream. The rest of the system isn't broken. I haven't created irreparable damage here. All I've done is change my design and been brave enough to go through and delete a whole lot of stuff I didn't need, right? So yes, I'm going to remove a bunch of tests, but those tests are no longer valid and no longer useful, so let's get rid of them. Okay, so I should have an app that builds. Now we make it not build again. So let's see if I understand how to use my own application stack that I've, again, spent a significant amount of time developing. So what I should be able to do is I should be able to go in here and watch caching kick me up. kick me in the butt here, sorry. If I go to TBD develop, oh, there we go. Why is Sagas on 1.0? Because it's cached. No, don't do it. I mean, it's not going to make a difference because the code's the same, but it's going to break my code because 0.01 is going to come along and 1.0 is going to be invalid. So NuGet server's caching that right now. I pulled that back and delisted it. So either way, I need generators here. So let's see what happens. New package is going to be installed. It supplements the mediator Saga library by auto-generating the handlers necessary when you introduce a Saga. Frank, time to go for me. Finishing out success was coding on my side too. Looking forward to catching you again live. Thank you very much for stopping by, Frank. It's been really good to have you here. Hope to see you again soon. Appreciate your time. Okay, so here we go. We're now going to... Oh, no, that's the mediator one. All right, let's see what happens. So I have tenant management application Sagas. So when I uncomment this, I'm going to need Sagas, right, and generators. Okay, so let's see. Import. Now, the biggest problem with this is I introduced a new signal, or kind of signaling interface. And it's the only way I could think about how do I go through and tell it this is the ID that I'm going to orchestrate on. So the biggest problem you have with the Saga is it's great that you publish these events, but you need something to coordinate that upon, right? In this case, it's a tenant identifier, right? So you need to make sure that every component of the system that's going to produce a message that you care about is able to give you the same identifier, which, if you're doing things right, shouldn't be difficult. There's one exception to that, which I'm going to get to. But again, I'm going to, rather than try and wipe over it, I'm going to demonstrate it because it will prove that, you know, I haven't just made some magic happen and everything's going to work. It's going to break. So what I did is I introduced orchestrated notification. And what this expects is me to tell it what my orchestrating GUID is. And I can probably adapt this later on to be more than just GUID. But right now I have one usage for this. That one usage is going to give me all the tests I need. I can revisit that later and create some more complicated types, or I can create something that says, okay, here's a set of values that are the orchestration. But right now, it's the tenant identifier there. So again, I go to this one. I orchestrated notification, right? So, and again, tenant identifier. I didn't think this was too bad a compromise for what it gave me. I'm melding this into mediator anyway, right? I'm not trying to, and again, the idea was to not create yet another layer totally around mediator and have messages coming into one piece, then adapting them, then forwarding them. I'm forwarding the same events. I'm just all I've done is generated the piece in the middle that gives me that, right? So here's the challenge. User was verified. I don't have enough information there, right? And this is what I'm saying. I'm not going to gloss over this fact. I'm going to address this fact. So I have a bit of a problem there in that I can't get to my tenant. So the way I'm going to solve it, hack or not, is I'm going to create a different notification. Public class tenant user was verified. I notification. I orchestrate notification. Public GUID tenant identifier. Public GUID user identifier. Another way of doing this as well would be to put attributes on my use attributes or some sort of reflection to kind of figure out what I mean. But I figured this was the cleanest way, and I kind of like the intent of it. So what that means is I'm going to have to create a entering step. Tenant user was verified. So what this is saying right this second Okay, so now obviously my now I'm implementing that. Right. Bool complete. Public override bool is complete. Is complete. I'm being a little bit. I changed my decision. I changed my mind on how I'm going to word that, right? So I do need to override though, because it's in the base class. Here's my other handle. Right. And in each of these cases, right, I'm just saying, you know, state dot is user verified equals true. I don't need to do anything with the event, so let's discard it. So Tolix, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. So I've got my events. Big moment. No. So okay. I kind of figured this part would happen, but we're gonna see what happens next. So source generators. It actually did try to generate me my handlers. So this is the entire purpose of what I've been working on for the last couple of days, right? So what's happened is I've created this saga, and rather than have me do all the wire up, right, I've had it do the generated classes. Right? So it creates tenant registration saga. So I wanted to make sure I did not have a collision on the names. So it's a bit wordy. Tenant registration saga, tenant user was registered handler. Takes the saga persistence. It then takes the event, tenant user was registered, and then because it's started by, it will try and fetch the saga. If it doesn't exist, it will create a new one. And then it will save it and move on. And it will distribute to that notification to that saga, which will then trigger that state to change and then save that state. The problem is that method, that is not in the right place. So I clearly have a problem still. And I thought I saw this in my in my prototyping, but I didn't. I didn't fix it because I thought, oh yeah, I just ruled it out as being, just one of those dev things. So what's not happening is it's not including the right namespace. Now I can't change this. Right, this is broken. Right. So why it worked in my dev stuff, because I demonstrated I have these unit tests that pass. So we've got a bit of a sticky point there, right? So just by doing this saga, I replaced all that code I deleted before, right? These do not have anything to do with the saga now. They just do their thing, which is kind of where I was aiming, right? I'm aiming for single responsibility. So this code is no longer needed. Now, this is where I now have a problem, because I now want to publish another event from here, which is kind of not what I want to do. It kind of is. This doesn't fit well with the suggested design of using mediator. Handlers should not call handlers, right? It's not meant to chain, if my understanding of the intent is right. But I'm going to do that. So I know it's in there at least. So that will, for each of those tenant users, publish user was verified. So this is a scenario, and I don't know if it's a realistic scenario in the long term, but this is the scenario that a user's gone in, registered a company, They then got in and registered another company, but they have not verified the email on the first one. When they verify the email on the first one, it will verify everything for them, right? They'll probably still get that second verify email, but that won't do anything at that point because it'll all be done. There we go. So I have to go back to my unit tests. Right, I have to go back to the code, fix the problem with that code. But otherwise, that did exactly what I wanted to do without any further tweaking, and that was my biggest worry. My biggest worry was I included the NuGet package, and it didn't work. But it did. It did exactly what it should have done, except it didn't get that part right. So we go back to source generators now, and we do a bit of review on debug of source generators. So let's go over here. So yeah, again, if anyone's watching that has any questions, they go through something I've just gone through, they want to ask further information on what I'm doing, feel free. I do not mind reviewing it. I do not mind talking about it. I could talk about this all day. It's a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of fun with this stuff. So, these unit tests passed. They all pass. I had deliberately broken them down into different directories, different namespaces. But if I go here and look at these, here, global usings, I have notifications there. But if I go and look at the generated handlers, right? Mess it up is what I say. The using does not have notifications in there. That should have, and it's, you can't edit this code, or you shouldn't edit this code, because it's auto-generated, it'll get wiped out. This should have notifications there. So until I see notifications there, I can't say this is fixed. That just pulls the git changes I did back. Okay, so let's go back to our generators. So I have a Holix, thank you very much for the raid. Appreciate that. Hi all. How's it going? Wow. That might be the most raid messages I've ever had. How's everyone doing? How did you end up, Satolix? Did you get the did you get the bot working, or did you get actually any game dev finished up? I wanted to stay and watch, and I was sat on the sofa, and I'm like, I really got to go do this code, and it's like, no, I'm gonna go do the stream. Got a little bit of the bot working and a little bit of game dev done. Nice. That's a win. That's a win. Havenstat, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. How's things going over here? Things are going generally well. We just had a bit of a success and a bit of a fail. Nice. So let me introduce everyone that's new to my project. So I'm not doing anything cool like game dev, right? I'm building an application stack. Christians, thank you very much for the follow. Fideve, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. So I am building an application to help developers, right? Agile project management is something that I deeply care about, right? I care about developers being productive. Being able to get the right requirements, being able to convey the right requirements, and being able to track work effectively. And throughout a long career so far, I have had a lot of failed projects. I've had a lot of, missteps. I did not even mention the fact that I'm using Rider, even though it is very wonderful and very clean and very fast. But just for reference, it is no better. Sorry for the large bright white screen. It is no better at memory management. It's still using 5 gig of memory, so it's no better than VS in that respect. So yes, I'm building an application for Agile project management. What sets my goal aside from other tools, Jira being my main goal, is that I want to focus on the collaborative nature of work, right? I want to focus on this team is doing this thing and this team is doing this thing, but they have the same piece of work at the core, so they should be visible from both sides, and being able to pass work on to other teams so that you know where it stands in the process. So that's kind of my focus. But what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a lot of prototyping, a lot of tinkering to figure out how I want to build my application. If you start an application, kind of microservices. I don't like the term microservices because it makes you think of little small pieces. These are little big pieces, or they will be little big pieces split up. So I don't believe, after many years of trying different ways of developing, that the best thing to do is to build an application and, you know, just sit at it and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and building it like that way, right? For an application, right? It's not a creative art form in that respect. It is, you want to make a good code base. You want to make a clean code base that you can maintain quickly and change, and it does its job, right? If anybody's worked in large code bases, you will have. My apologies for the ads for those that. I'm gonna wait a second to finish that out for anyone. Okay, you don't have an ad. Awesome. I just want to. I put them in there to try and make sure that pre-rolls and stuff go, because my stuff is kind of difficult to get into if you join me and then you're in like 3 minutes of ads. So I'm trying to balance the ad balance the way that I want to. So anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm going through and building out the components as I might want them. I'm tinkering with different technologies, different ways of doing things. So I've used SQL Server. I'm using Kafka for messaging. I'm using Ocelot for API gateways. I'm using Couchbase for some pieces just to try and tinker with the different technology. And the Couchbase piece is a document DB. So I've built in, what I've been doing is building in the pieces I need to work effectively with Couchbase, so that I can again write meaningful work and focus on actually achieving describing what it's doing versus what the technology is doing, right? Because underneath you have to communicate with Couchbase and you have to do all sorts of stuff. So I've kind of wrapped that up into a nice layer. This now creates a ticket, right? This deletes a ticket, right? I'm layering the application, I'm building them up, and trying to figure out how I want the code to work. Yeah, this is 25 years as a developer, right? I've been learning how to do this for a long time. This isn't right. This is my way, but it works for me, right? My code base works for me, and that's the most important part. If you're working with a team, write the code that the team is comfortable with. Work within the bounds of the team. Do not work within someone's expectations of how your software should work, right? If you go online and you're like, how do I build good software, right? You'll find 1,000,001 different explanations of clean architecture, hexagonal architecture, domain-driven design, all manner of buzzwords. But if you spend most of your time trying to fit your code into someone else's way of doing something, you lose track of what your code's doing. So focus on writing your code first. And if someone else has to maintain it, work with them, right? Work together, agree upon things, set standards, grow your code base, grow your understanding. Don't worry about trying to fit it into this little box because some person who's got 100 years on the job and has written 50 books says it should be this way. You know? Yeah. And that's the important piece, right? So I couldn't remember to read them out. The problem is having two streams, I'm not going to capture that properly. So the real reason for them standards right there, working with others. Exactly. It's about making sure that you can work effectively. And so the code I'm writing is the code that I want to write because it feels good for me. Right. So I have a layer for an API, right? So my API has an endpoint, right? In here, if I want to create a new team, I post to the team's endpoint, right? This in here sends a command that says register a new team. That's all this does, right? It forwards it essentially. But this captures the HTTP part, it can validate the HTTP request, and it can then send it forward into the application layer. The application layer has a command for register new team. And this handles that command by checking if the team exists. And if it doesn't, add the team. Done, right? And that's the way I want to write the code. The application for the tenant management, a little bit heavier, but all the same patterns, right? So I have commands, right? I register a new tenant. It does a thing. It registers a new tenant with some validation around existing. No. So the reason I stream is exactly what I'm doing right now, right? I like discussing what I do. I like opinions. I like feedback. I like conversation. I love working with other developers. I don't get to do it very often, right? And it's something I'm passionate about. So yeah, I never walk into a stream and think, I'm going to get a lot done today. Yeah. Now the biggest challenge is, like you said, it seems like you know something. The biggest challenge, and there was someone in here earlier on who said, I'm kind of new, so I don't know what I don't like or whatever. Or I can't tell you if there's anything wrong there. A fresh set of eyes, whether it be someone who's worked in software development for 5 minutes or 5 years or 5 decades, is a fresh set of eyes. Different experience, different understanding, different exposure. So it's kind of like, if you like something or you don't like something or you want to know more, it's good to share, right? The number of times I've changed the way I design code throughout my career, right? If I see something new tomorrow, I could go and change all this because it feels better. It feels more natural. I like the way it does it. Or I write it just to see if I can. I don't have anything I could give you like advice, but I'm here to give good vibes. That's perfectly fine. I appreciate you being here. I truly do. So, that's what I'm building. So what am I working on right this second? So what I've recently done, I've started to experience that lately and it scares me. The urge to rip things apart and refactors grows with knowledge. It does. You can look back on something and you will always look back on code you wrote a week ago, a year ago, or worse. You will always look back on it and be like, who wrote that? Right? Because you've evolved. If you look back at code you wrote 10 years ago and say, that's still perfect, probably a little bit too arrogant. Right? I have spent years putting stuff in my GitHub repos, right? I have many different projects up here. I'm not an active contributor to my own projects, but I do have a lot of stuff up here, right? And this is roast potato, right? 12 years ago, right? 11 years ago, last touched, right? This was me trying to learn how to um, build code that I could write simple strings to query data, right? So I could write something like credit limit greater than 5,000 and last name like Jen, or credit limit less than 1,600, right? I was trying to tinker with this stuff. And I look back on this code now and I'm thinking, ooh, that's horrendous. It still does its job, by the way. It actually builds link statements that could actually be executed against SQL Server. But I've done that sort of stuff, right? These projects never went anywhere. They never went to someone else, right? They're just there. Looks like 2011 is the last one that goes back to. But I have 58 repositories. 30 of them are public, right? Some of them are forks, yes. Bounce. a PHP framework from over 10 years ago where I wanted to learn about MVC. So I wrote my own framework for doing model view controller in PHP. Laravel and stuff existed. I always do a lot of forking around, yeah. That's the closest to swearing I'm going to get, by the way. For reference, I do not swear or use any sort of language on my stream. So the bot would get or should get you. It picks deflux up. So, I wrote this to learn, right? It's never gone anywhere. I never built anything with it beyond one simple site. But I learned a lot from it. I grew from it. And now I look back on code and I can reflect. So it's important to do stuff. And this is a prime example, right? So this is a piece I've been working on. This introduces a saga, which is a coordinating component of the system. So different events happen, and I want to say, when all these events have happened, do something else, right? So, this is kind of my sign up piece where things happen, I sign up for the account, whatever, and I register the user, and then I have to confirm the user. These different events need to be coordinated because I only want, when all of the events have happened, do I want to proceed and actually start establishing data, etc. So I don't want to do that prematurely. So I've created this library to build these things up for me. So I can write one class and it will generate all the supporting classes. And this is what I was working on just as you guys entered the stream. So I have a bug. The concept is, if I go back to Liquid Sky, the concept is, in my application, I have a saga. Right? So when a tenant is registered, it publishes an event to tell anyone else who cares. It publishes it internally, right? Just to this library. The tenant was registered. Then when the user is registered, it publishes that user was registered. But I don't want to do anything in the system wide until I get notified that user has clicked the button to say, yep, I'm definitely a user, in their email, and it's confirmed with my system. So I have this concept of this saga. Now I wanted to write this, right? So what happens is I write my saga name, my identifier. This identifier is a coordinating identifier, an orchestration identifier. It's every message that comes in has to have that ID so that I know that they all fit together. It has a state because it can track that. It can be passed in through the event. It can gather that data together if it needs to. And it's started by the tenant user was registered or the tenant was registered, because these events may or may not come out of sequence. Each one of these can establish this saga. And it also handles tenant user was verified. And its complete status is if the tenant's registered and the user's registered and the user's verified, it's done, right? I wanted to write this, but I didn't want to write all the code to start listening for these. Lazy? Maybe. But that sort of stuff is not core to my application. It clouds the waters. If you have to go through dozens and dozens and dozens of layers of code to find out why it's doing this, for the simple reason it's a notification, right? All you should care about is this. You shouldn't care about the rest. So what I've done is I've used what's called source generators in .NET to build those classes. And what it does is it will build so I have tenant registration Saga, tenant user was verified. So this message here, it will build a class to handle that event, make sure it can get it. It will then find the Saga that it's responding to. If it doesn't exist, it will return. No harm, no foul. If it does exist, it will then handle that notification, so it'll pass it down into my Saga. It will go here, which will then mark that as verified. And then it will save that back to the database. It'll persist the state on the database. This is phase 1. Phase 2 will be doing something in response, but this has been 2 days in the making. So that's all generated for me based upon the library doing that. Thank you. Appreciate it. So these pieces, these extra pieces that I'm building around my core application to support my application, I'm going to make all these open source. The core application, not so much, but anything I develop in addition to the core application, I will open source. And this was the first one of these. So all this code is available on one of those mediator.sagas under those public repos of mine. So this has, what this does is it actually goes and looks at code. So find Sagas with handler, right? So this will actually do some, this is being run when the code is compiling. So when you hit build, the .NET's built to have analyzers, and this is one of those analyzers, and it will go through and literally go through every single piece of the code, and this will say, okay, is the piece that I'm investigating, the syntax node on the syntax tree, right? Is this piece a class? If it is, let's continue on. Does it have a base class? Like, is it inherited from anything? No? Okay, we don't care about that one. Is the base type actually a Saga, i.e. it inherits from Saga? Yes. I don't care about this type right now. Let's move on. If it isn't, then let's go through all the other pieces of it. And this figures out, yep, this is a Saga, and this is the interface, and this is what builds those things up. So this identifies this as being a candidate for being reflected, for building a class out of. And then in here, I kind of register the receiver, and then I call generate, which I've created as an abstract base class method. And this goes through, and it's pretty simple actually. It goes through those candidates. It gets the class that I'm actually working with, the Saga. It then figures out the namespace. It then goes and pulls the template for the relevant piece that I'm looking at. And the template is, I'm using a library called Scriben, which is very nice. It's actually got, it's a templated library. But it has built-in facility for logic and loops and stuff like that. So it's a very full-featured scripting language. But basically, it will load up the relevant script, which is my sub out of what my class is going to look like. It'll do all the token replacement and then generate my class. And then add it as a source file into my generated classes, which is awesome. Except I've got a bug. So in my class here, right, when I first wrote, during the first version, I assumed that the handled event would be in the same file as the Saga itself. So I actually put these classes in the same namespace as the Saga. So if you were to look at the decompiled code, these classes would sit in at the same level as the Saga itself. So if you were looking at the decompiled code, or with the exception of you'd see a comment saying it was auto-generated, you would not know it from anything else. It would look like regular built code. You can also use this technique to enhance existing classes as well. So you can use it for kind of code injection. So dynamic code injection when you're building your application. So that's pretty cool. But what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, I have my class and it has a namespace. It's going to sit in the same namespace as Sagas, but it uses a notification. And that notification comes from a namespace that might not be the same as my class. So I need the namespace of that event. So these handlers handler identifier. So the handlers are actually the values that I put into here, the identifier name. And this is the arguments. Yeah, this is the actual generic from the I handle, right? Because this is caring about I handle or I am started by. This is the generic passed in there. And that in this case, in Liquid Sky, that is this piece right here. So it should pull the namespace from that piece. Right? That's the idea. This pulls the identifier. And then when it gets to here, what it should do is it should say, what's in your ancestors, i.e. your entire syntax node tree, get me the first file scope namespace declaration syntax in your tree. And that's what I'm going to take as your namespace. It should then take this and put it into there, into my usings. And when it generates my actual class, there's my loop for using in usings, using. It just slides right off the tongue, right? I couldn't think of any better way to name that. So that's my goal right this second. So one of the benefits of this is, right, if you can create something that uses this, you can debug it, right? So I've got a unit test case, right? So I've got a unit test case, and because I've got unit tests hooked up to it, right, I can actually create a debug. So if I go into properties, I've got launch settings. I can say, okay, I want to debug the Roslyn component. So this is the source generation I'm using, Roslyn. In .NET, there's several different ways of doing source generation. You can actually build code on the fly. That is another option. You can inject kind of classes you've written in text files and stuff. You can actually make it compile them on the fly. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do. This one is just building it like real source code. So I get all the right errors and whatnot. And that's the problem, right? That's the problem with Liquid Sky right now, right? I have gone to build it and it's like, no, I have no idea where these methods are. And you can see tenant registration saga, tenant user was verified handler .g.cs. This is just a naming convention. There's nothing required there. I'm just trying to be explicit. So if I go back to my mediator sagas, I'm saying, okay, the target project is my test project, right? So I can go in to, I probably want to go into my handler generator. Let's put a breakpoint here. I can go and I've got this set to run. So I can hit F5 and I should hit a breakpoint. Okay, so I'm really hoping that right now I hover over something, it stands out like a sore thumb, and I fix it within seconds and I can complete everything else. And do not spend the next however many minutes of my stream I have remaining struggling trying to look at strings. So my handler identifier name syntax is a sample notification, right? For reference, there's my notification. Sample notification. Under, if I go here, the tbd develop.mediator.saga.generators.test.sample.notifications namespace. Wow, that's a long namespace. Anyway, if I F10, the handler namespace comes back as tbd develop.mediator.saga.generators.test.sample.saga. That's not right. So what am I missing? Because that's that namespace. I didn't call them the same thing. I didn't mistakenly redeclare the variable. One thing that's going to trip me up as well here is if you write a Saga in a old school style C#, this will all blow up because it expects it to be a file scope namespace declaration syntax because they had to create different syntax nodes for nested namespaces versus file scope namespaces. So this is very much focused on a certain design right now. So I would hate for this. If I had to support people doing this, I would have to write a lot more code. Anyway, that's why it's open source. So what I'm looking for here is there any hint in this debug as to why this thinks it is in the wrong namespace? Right? Why does it think it's in this namespace? So this part is actually, both of them know about the syntax. I wonder if the other part has any more insight, is kind of where I was going there. But I apologize for the rather quiet stream. I don't like listening to music anymore while I code. And a long time ago, because I talk quite a lot about what I'm doing, kind of decided not to put it into the stream. And also, the number of times I had copyright issues or issues with the music once I started to upload the videos, I just decided not to chase it. I've had videos pulled for music that I had in BRB screens. It was royalty free. And YouTube's pulled videos down, so I don't put music other than the pieces I've actually got in the BRB screen right now. I don't put music in the stream, so I apologize for the quietness. It can be quite jarring, I know, and it's not. It doesn't make my stream a very good stream to sit with it on in the background. Copyright is fun to contend with, and to be honest, you present the opportunity for folks to listen to their own music anyway. There is that. Yes. Yes. You don't get to listen to my choice of music, which wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. So how do I figure this out? So let's go and look at the ancestors. So if we go to debug, and we go here, and let's go to turn it from a drawback to a feature. Some folks prefer nice words only experience anyway. Yeah, I think it does generally lend to less interaction. It's weird. Because I'm not focused on. I've never really managed a striking a balance of interactivity and stuff, and I think I want to work a little bit on that because I think it does help people feel more comfortable in the stream. Also, because I'm always covering topics like this, it is not necessarily easy for everyone to jump into because there's not a lot of C# devs on Twitch, and if you're young and learning, this can be kind of intimidating. I get it, and you know, again, C# isn't everyone's cup of tea, so I've only been doing it for like 4 years, so still new. So let's level look at those ancestors to list them. So the ancestors look like this. So there's a type argument list, a generic name syntax, simple base type syntax, file scope namespace declaration syntax, which again is the multiple handle saga. Do I not know what I'm pulling here? I don't think I understand what I'm actually getting here in this syntax tree. Because that's everything. I don't think that is exactly what I want. We can thank GitHub Copilot, by the way, for some of this code. I'm going to go play some games and listen to music. Thank you for what you do. I hope you're an interesting and fun stream. Thank you very much, Christians. Appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Take care. And thank you for coming in on the raid. I do appreciate the joining in and chatting is nice. It's been 40 minutes? No. Twitch lies. It's not been 40. No, you did not come in 40 minutes ago. I hit ads. It's got to be every 30 minutes it's hit me with the ads. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be on for too much longer, but I will be around. Feel free. I do stream early in the day, my time as well. That drop. Okay. I gotta figure out. Let's see if Copilot can help me out a little bit more. Get namespace of handle identifier. Name syntax. I was having some great luck with this last night. I was telling it what to do, and it was giving me everything. Yeah, I'm still trying to find the balance of whether I want to run the ads or want loads of preloads. I have Twitch Turbo, so I never see how ads affect the stream. Still bugging me. Like, Twitch is going to run them. I want to control them a little bit better. Yuck. I need a namespace. Why won't that come from that? So, what do I actually have there? I have a handle, a syntax receiver. We need more adverts, I think. They can be a bit of a hindrance, but to be honest, if you can certainly stopping pre-rolls, then it's worthwhile. I want people to join in and be able to talk and not be hit with a pre-roll. And if I can minimize the impact to people, I want to do that. So I don't mind. I mean, unless you're streaming to hundreds of people, it's hardly going to create a blip on the radar in terms of the money it brings. So it's not. I want to find the right balance, and I want to find the right balance for people coming in. And it's bugged me every single stream. No, I know he doesn't. And you know, I'm one of those little turbo ticks, and actually more turbo users than I thought coming to streams, because I've definitely seen a tick in the turbo. But yeah, this is my only experience, of course. But I found pre-rolls don't really harm new user interaction. But then again, I don't know how many people got hit with an add-on first click. I said nope. Yeah, yeah. I can turn them off and see if I'm going to experiment. I've got a camera to set up tomorrow, so next week I'm going to stream with an actual 4K camera on, which I'm kind of nervous about for the first time in a while. I did find that having my face with this does actually engage more people. It for me, for this that I'm doing this particular thing, I think it adds a little bit more to this experience. To be honest, when I join a stream, I expect to see an advert, so I don't mind. Okay. I say doing experiments in blocks is smart, but a chance to see trends in your stats. But if it's halfway through a sentence. Yeah. So I don't know if you've watched him very much, but Pirate Software, his approach is the moment an ad fires, he puts up a ad playing screen and talks about other stuff that doesn't matter to the stream. I like that format. But my worry would be even now I'm worried about losing my entire track because I was on a track, and I'm worried that I'd just waffle for too long. Yeah, man. People like to watch someone think, helps them feel like they should be thinking and focusing too. Yeah, and I do have those moments, and it helps when you can see me doing it. Right, I'm just a voice on a screen with a little logo in the corner. It's not as personal. You've got your son and you've got yourself that you're on the screen. You don't need to see an actual face, and it's part of the quirkiness and the entertainment of the stream, the game programming and stuff. I'm here because of the boring stuff, right? People don't always want to watch the boring stuff, which we're keeping on track. That's completely understandable. Yes. So it's kind of funny the difference in how we're both developing, but the audiences we're developing for and to are going to be slightly different. To me, I love games, right? One of the things I'm going to do with my bot, now I'm inspired by you, is I'm trying to focus on this so that I can do this and move it forward. But I really want to go back and add the layer to the bot because I was tinkering with that code and it's really fascinating. I want to focus my bot on games in general. So for those who haven't been in here before, I spent a lot of the time on my stream developing software to track my games library. So I do have, this site is not public, by the way, it's IP limited to me. So even if you get the URL, it's not much use. So this site, oh, I forgot, I apologize. So I have a lot of games, now 1,651 games. So I love games. Across 36 different consoles. So it's been a passion of mine for a long time. And I've written a lot of software on stream going over this. Being able to, so I hook this into price charting. I can click on a game. I can expand. I can expand Blazor. Inferior software. That's crashed. Blazor crashed. I think it's the actual sheer amount of data. But each one of these stood. Yeah, there you go. It was just taking its sweet time loading the data. It tracks the history. So I collect the price charting data and I track that. So I've spent a lot of time on stream doing this as well. This is not my primary focus right now, but I do have a lot of games. So I want to introduce into my bot, and I'm hoping it's possible if I can figure out the memory piece, that when you come into the stream, the bot will ask you, hey, what's your favorite game? And when you say your favorite game, they can recall facts about that game, but also continue a conversation about the game. So next time you join the stream, it could give you a random fact about the game that you like. That sort of stuff. So kind of make it a little bit more interactive, but being able to focus it on something I'm passionate about as well, and be able to show that development. So I was tinkering with the prompt stuff and figuring out how to constrain everything to games. So I actually got it saying, that doesn't relate to games. Why do you need to know that? So it was pretty cool. But that's what I want to do. I want to introduce that into the bot. So In terms of the bot, again, I wrote my own. Bot dev does help interaction if you do it right. You can add features interaction without distracting yourself. I've spent a lot of time doing bot development on my stream early on, and I found it just very distracting to me, and I didn't feel I'm original enough or energetic enough about it to be able to demonstrate it properly. So I recently just made a change to my bot. So my bot's not based on TwitchLib. It's built on my own code. So what I did recently was I changed it so this is the demo bot. I can I add the Twitch stream bot, I add the commands I want to use, then I add middlewares. So this pulls all the commands from here, right? So I can run it and put an ad in there. But then I can apply middleware, so I can actually have a layer that just processes the command. So all this does is take in the command. It actually gets broken out a little bit further than that, in that there is a piece at the beginning that breaks it out into a Twitch stream command and separates out the user, the headers, all that sort of stuff. So by the time it gets into the command here, it's working with an actual Twitch message. And this is just the bot responding to the command. So each command has a can execute and an execute, and then I have a stream output, which is the response back to the actual stream. So I can inject that into anything I want. And then I can add a middleware. So I added the default messaging dispatcher. So this actually it tries to pass the message. So this is what comes in first. If it's not a Twitch message, it just bails out. If it is, it builds a messaging context and then dispatches it down the pipeline. So then I can add in a middleware for the bot, and this gets in there as well, and it will get passed all the time, no matter if it's a command or not. But then it will also respond. Like I actually tested, it will respond if it says that. So bot dev is something that I could definitely sink a lot of time into. From here, my intention is to fire off an event and have the bot, because again, the bot can work independently and still have that output stream. So later on, when it has a response, it can come back and push into the stream without the rest of the bot being affected. So not using TwitchLib has given me a little bit more control there. PubSub is a mess. I still have to make that work. PubSub is on the floor crying. But yeah, and I actually have developed a version of this that I built an actual bot upon. This is this again is in my GitHub. All this code is free. It is freely available. I open source this piece, everything. But yeah, but again, I apply the same things I do in everyday development to this as well, right? Looks like you've got things organized well for making it scale up and adding into it though. Well, that was what the refactoring was last week. So you got me started on bot dev, so I'm blaming you. But I wanted to come back and fix this and put the pipeline in there. Once I saw the AI stuff, I'm like, that looks really fascinating. And I heard the semantic kernel stuff, and I'm like, Google, oh, that looks fun. So, yeah. So that will be coming in the coming weeks. So yeah, that is the goal. Now, from that perspective, all this should be is I write the semantic kernel stuff, and I go in and put a queue in there that publishes the, hey, this message just got received, you need to deal with this, and then it deals with it and then publishes a message back that says, yep, you can deal with it now, and it pushes it back into the stream. And it's asynchronous. So I can queue the messages to the AI stuff separate to the actual bot processing extra commands, and it shouldn't back up on itself. And I can layer in permissions, so certain commands can be run by mods. I can do all that in those commands. So I can just go into a single command and say, oh, this has to be a moderator, or this has to be a VIP or whatever. So, but again, that's all there. Okay, just realized what time it is. I've got a limited amount of time left. Joy. Okay. So I wanted to put a breakpoint here and see if I can figure this out. If I don't get this done tonight, it's not. The biggest focus of tonight's stream was to see if I could publish these packages to NuGet. Right. So this is the library, the Mediator Sagas library that I've been working with, and it now has a release, and that is up in NuGet. So I could pull them down and reference them. I'm referencing my own libraries as packages. So tbd-develop.mediator.saga.generators. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing. So yeah. Let's see if I can do this. So I want to breakpoint that, run that, and see. So all I'm doing right this second is I'm trying to guess my way through this structure. Rather than spending hours Googling, the first thing I do when I come up against this sort of stuff is investigate the API as best as I can to try and understand what does it actually have at this point. Right. Do I see that namespace appear anywhere, right? Type list arguments, right? This is a higher level than that one. Does this have anything to do with it? Doesn't mention that namespace at all. It's driving me insane. Why doesn't it mention the namespace? Oh, less than token. You've got a full syntax token to represent arrow. So, arguments, sample notification, results. Sample notification is an identifier name syntax tree. Parent is sample notification. We're going to how do I get the namespace of an identifier name syntax element in Roslyn? I have all sorts of stuff in this. I've got Unreal Engine stuff in here. I've got Auth0 stuff in here, Couchbase stuff. Most of these conversations revolve around me going, no, you're wrong. Give me the right information. No, you're still wrong. Give me the right information. Okay. So in Roslyn, you can get the namespace of an identifying name syntax element by analyzing the surrounding context and the semantic information provided by the compilation. Here's a step-by-step guide on how to do this. Create a semantic model. You'll need a semantic model to analyze the code and get semantic information. You can create a semantic model for your C# code like this. Ensure that the compilation is a compilation of your entire project. Locate the identify name syntax node. You should have an identify name syntax node that you want to get the namespace for. You can locate it in your syntax tree by traversing the syntax tree or using a code analysis tool like Roslyn Syntax Walker. Get the containing namespace or type. Once you have the identify name syntax node, you can use the semantic model to find the containing namespace or type. You can do this by calling semanticmodel.getSymbolinfo on the identifying name syntax and then navigating the symbol hierarchy to find the namespace. Here's an example. Who wants to bet? This does not work at all. Right, semantic model. I get semantic model from the syntax tree. Do I have a syntax tree? I have a syntax node. I do not have a syntax tree. Yeah. How do I do this in a syntax receiver? In order to get the namespace for an identified name syntax element, here's a completely different way of doing it. Oh no. No. Don't send me down that path. Here we use the mySyntaxReceiver class to collect and then analyze these nodes in the analyze syntax node. Oh, bugger. I've got a whole new class to look at. Add. So identify nodes and then diagnostic analyzer. Where does this come from and where do I use it? Here we use ensure that you set up your analyzer project correctly and register with the Roslyn Analyzer framework. This approach will allow you to find, analyze, identify within your code. So ultimately it comes down to getting a name. It comes down to getting symbol info rather than because here I've got the identify name syntax again, right? But it comes down to getting the symbol info over the syntax tree. Diagnostic context or semantic model. Oh, hold on. No. Var symbol info equals. Come on. Yes. Get symbol info. If let's put a breakpoint there. Okay. Symbol info. Oh, first time is right. Almost. That's the actual namespace of the object. Kind of. Let's bring this up. I went through several different iterations of this code using AI and Copilot. Copilot actually gave me some completely invalid C# code. It was not even close to real C# code. But I've got it set to not publicly share, so it's using my code, which I don't think is true. I think Copilot is doing what it wants to do anyway. As you witnessed the other day, Stoics, with the Copilot just not turning itself off. If symbol info dot symbol is I namespace symbol false. Symbol info dot symbol dot containing namespace dot name. Oh, come on. String. There it is. There it is. Yes, that's guesswork. No, that might not be resilient, but it gives me exactly what I'm expecting to see right now. I want to try it, build it, see if it runs. If it runs, as I build forward with the library, I can verify the use cases. I can harden the library, right? If I just keep trying to figure out every solution, every possible scenario that may or may not come up, I'm going to dig myself into a large hole. There's no benefit in doing that. So that replaces that, right? If symbol, it's actually that namespace declaration. No, you're gonna break there. Hope it was. I get some dinner lined up as it's late and I haven't eaten. Wish you the best. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the raid. Appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. I assume you're streaming tomorrow, so I will be there for 14 days, 14 streams in a row. Have a good one. Appreciate it. So that's handle namespace. So a quick build there, and we should, he says, see that the source generators have put right namespace. So why did these always pass? That's still bugging me why these always passed. There's no reason the unit test should have passed. But it did it. So get namespace from symbol info. Get namespace for notification from symbol info over the ancestors. Commit and push. See what we're going to do. I'm going to push that, right? If we get this working, I need to figure out how to get a either anonymized or hidden side panel there. I don't want the idea of like the idea of different profiles for ChatGPT. So releases. Okay, so now we need to create a new release. This is going to be 0.0.2. This is going to be space correction for notifications. Namespaces. And this is going to be habit forming, right? I'm going to have to make sure that if I'm updating this library, if I want it to be taken as a potential library, I've got to maintain it. I can't just treat it like, yeah, it's just supporting me. I'm only using it for supporting me. I want it to be helpful. If you are writing an application and you have a need for this, then great, you can validate it as well. But I want to make sure that I'm trying to be polite to anybody else using it. Namespaces were not being correctly identified for the notifications. So usings were wrong. Wrongs. Usings were wrong. Changed how they are identified with a suggested method. Okay, so we'll publish the release. This will then go and trigger a build, right, in the workflow. And it will publish the packages. This will publish all the packages, so all the versions will update at once. I'll have to figure out how to get release notes and stuff in there because that's going to be important as well. Okay, so have you successfully failed? No. Yeah. So it's publishing, it's building, it's running the tests, etc. It's doing all that sort of stuff. Warning. These are my unit tests causing those issues, by the way. NuGet packages, yeah. Push the NuGets. Pack the NuGets. Push the NuGets. Again, 1 out of 3 will pass, I would bet. Yeah, 1 passed. So the other 2 are running. This one's already done its job. Which part? The unit tests. They're all warnings that I really should turn up a little bit. Also, I need to install SolarLint, I think it is, on this machine because I have it on my other machine. How are you working? Comment them out. You're not commenting out unit tests. Okay, so this is gonna be interesting because generators was the one that changed. I don't need But that's challenging because that's going to be a while as well. NuGet.org. Manage packages. Do you not publish? Oh, tell me it's stuck on version 1.0. Tell me I've got to go back and fix that again. Pull requests. This is horrible if this is the case, because then I've got no 002. It does say 002. Back NuGets 002 002 002. Yes, it should have published version 002. So these should be unlisted packages. Oh, that's a challenge. Why didn't they get marked as... Huh. It's going to be a problem. This one's going to trip up because NuGet uses something simple to refresh. I think NuGet uses something simple to determine what is an upgrade. So I'm going to have to manually switch it out, and that will forever be broken if I'm not careful. So this month, or in the past month, I have managed to not only publish NuGet packages for the first time ever, and in goodness knows how many years NuGet packages have been around, I have also managed to get my first PR merged into the this is just being slow. This is why this is happening. I managed to the Couchbase repository. I actually upgraded their sample library, sample application to .NET 8. Changed it all out for inline statements and stuff, and that got approved and merged. I just want this drop down to enable. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Just really getting myself in trouble because I'm meant to have finished by now. But I really want to finish this piece. It does not want to work, does it? If in doubt, turn it off and turn it back on again. That's interesting. Oh, why did that not save? That would be why. Save. Why didn't you save? That's... Come on. You can't delete it, right? Because you can't... Okay, packages. Unlisted pack. It is not letting me do it because it's a higher number. Oh, come on. I can't delete it. This is how you end up with crap in NuGet because I can't say this is not used. You know it's not downloaded. Like, it hasn't even updated the stats. This is a distributed system. You can tell because the stats on how many downloads it's got. I've clearly downloaded it once. I'm using it. List or unlisted version. So hold on. Don't list that one. Ah, that checkbox is per element of the drop down. But if I go here, go to TBD develop, go here, versions. I assume that's because I'm the owner, so it's showing me unlisted. But 5 hours ago, no, really. But either way, it is there. So let's start this up. So Deflux, I'm going to have to end soon. Is there anyone that I should jump over to with you and whoever else is going to stick around? I trust your judgment on who to jump to. Well, it's probably not a great time on a what day is it? Saturday. Okay, come on. Show a little green, show a little blue mark. Please show a little blue mark. So this is just caching, right? This is just distributed cache of the NuGet packages. This is the cost it's going to come with. I'm going to have to wait until that library updates so version 2 is there. My entire development now rests upon that. So this is why having a local NuGet server would be helpful here. Distributed cache. Yeah, the caching of the NuGet packages means that I'm not going to get that latest version no matter what I've set. So even though this clearly says 002, no readme, I'll get that up there later. I'm not getting any stats on it, right? I'm not. So I am stuck until it refreshes. But anyway, I did ask, is there anybody else you believe that I should hand over to? Because I'm going to have to finish here because I owe a child time for looking after dogs while I streamed. So Carpenter. Okay, then sadly I will not get to see this through on stream. By Monday, I'm sure NuGet will have refreshed. I'm going to keep continually refreshing this for the next, like, goodness knows how long, just to see when it comes through. I will raid you over to the Carpenter, and I will have to bounce. Who would you prefer? You get to pick, being that you are the wise chooser and the stream introducer. I'm not sure I follow either of those people, so what are they doing? Carpenter is doing, let's build. Unity dev. Okay. I'll send you over to Mawixi, however you pronounce that. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for hanging on in the raid for those who came over in that. I will return on Monday morning, my time. Nice and early deflux, 7 a.m. And I will hopefully be able to continue with the Saga stuff and get this application started to build. Once this works, I've got to figure out how to publish the event. So there's more changes to this library coming, more differences. I probably will do most of them before the stream on Monday so that I can try and get a little bit more progress made into the application next week. then we'll pick up some bot development later next week and get the AI stuff done, I think, once I've made solid progress on this. So thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate it. And I will see you again soon. Let's go raid Maweeksy. So thank you all. Take care. Have a great rest of your evening, day. I'll see you again soon. Also, if I don't put BRB up.